I welcome you all with love. Today we're doing Parsha Naso. And Naso means in Hebrew the lifting up. It's really a bigger picture of understanding, but Naso that we're talking about is, in a sense, completing a whole cycle for us. But first, for us to really get it, which is different than teaching Torah, I'm going to call it being Torah. So there's a story of the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid of Mezrah. And Maggid was really an expert, had read every single book on everything. But his wife said to him, you need to go visit the Baal Shem Tov. And he ignored it, and she kept nagging him. He kept ignoring it, and finally he goes. Walks through it's winter, and he finally listens to his wife. Good idea. And he gets there, and the Baal Shem Tov is very superficial with him. He comes back the next day again. Baal Shem Tov teaches him just a little bit. He's really testing him, but the Maggid isn't quite tuned into what's going on. And finally, the third day, same thing happens, and he says, "I'm going to have to leave because my wife is wrong." Okay, you got to get the humor of this. So the Baal Shem Tov says to him, "Look, before you go, read this passage." And he reads it. Nothing happens. Read it accurately. And then the Baal Shem Tov reads the same passage. And as he reads the passage, everything he's talking about in the passage, every time they mention the name of an angel, the angel actually appears. In other words, the Maggid of Mezrah finally got, no, wait. There's a much deeper truth in the Torah than intellectually knowing it. And that woke him up. That's a key understanding. Besides, listen to your wife, it's a key understanding here. And what is the deeper truth? Now, what are we talking about? Well, it's actually faith that God exists. As simple as that. It isn't just faith, but it's faith in the existence of God. And we can break it down into some understandings. The first is there's only God. And God is singularity. God is dancing in all creation. And the duality that we experience in the outer world when we get to is actually an illusion. He would call it Amadeperta. It's an illusion. So that's what we're talking about. Now, how do we get there? Okay, well, on one level, it's pretty straightforward. The Baal Shem Tov in his book Sa'avat Halibash says meditation is 7 times more important than studying the Torah. It doesn't say don't study the Torah, but if you want to understand the Torah, you have to go within to have the direct experience. It can't be just intellectual. So now we're going to take a look at how this happened, because we can't really understand Naso until we understand the whole journey. And that's going to take us back to the time of Abraham and Sarah, where Abraham gets the direct revelation. Now, Abraham now is a troublemaker. He's no longer, I'm going to use the metaphor, the bird in the cage, who is willing to accept the normal teachings. He confronts Nimrod. You're not God. There's only the real God. Nimrod's upset. Throws him in the oven. Nothing happens. He gets maybe a deeper cooking of his understanding, but he and Sarah leave. Now, I mentioned Sarah because the whole Torah talks about the importance of relationship in many ways. So what we see is he and Sarah leave, and then we have Yitzhak and Rivka, and she's willing to leave her family and journeying off really into the unknown. And when she comes, the tent of Sarah lights up, okay? In other words, there's a component of the Shekhinah energy that the female energy brings that makes it complete. Okay? And then we have Jacob and his two wives, and they also help free them from Laban, and it goes on and on. What's my point? The relationship, the Torah really teaches the male-female relationship is a very important part in the overall understanding of Torah. Okay, I didn't say just the intellectuals. I'm talking about the whole overall understanding. It's no accident that on the ark you have the two cherubim facing each other, the male-female elements. So in this tradition, the importance of the dance of the male and female is very important, and that's key. Now, the other key piece to it is the history of Israel is always breaking out of the cage. Israel is known as the boundary crosser, okay? The one that doesn't stay in the cage of the enforced beliefs of what I would call the matrix at this point. They're always the one that says, no, there's God, and we don't buy your story. And the bird in the cage is what Israel chose absolutely not to be. We're not going to be a bird in the cage. Oh yes, we'll protect you in the cage and you'll be safe. All of which is always a lie because it never works that way. And that's what, in a sense, the same game plan is going on. If we kind of understand what the dark forces are doing, if we create enough chaos, that's what they're saying, finally people will say we need a one world government to end the chaos. And we'll protect you, and we'll give you safety, and and it'll be good. And the prophecy is, in the next few years, as more and more chaos is created, and then that promise is made, there'll be some peace for a few years, but then the power of Satan begins to come and, in essence, take over our lives, and that was exactly what happened in the temple, and in a sense the rebelling against the one world government symbolized by the Antichrist who's trying to take over. I'll promise you peace, it'll be safe, it'll be good, and after a few years it won't be. And that's one of the battles we face today. Let's be very clear about it. What is the mark of the beast? People think it's a number. No, it's taking on the ways of the matrix, living that way, talking that way, acting that way. Israel has always said, no, we're not going to be the bird in the cage. And it's always been a problem. Why aren't we the bird in the cage? Because we know there's a greater truth. We know that the only way to be protected, the only way to really be saved, the only way to wake up is God. No government, no person, no husband or wife is going to save you. It's not meant to be that way. And so a key in understanding the dynamic relationship where this is kind of played out is the role of the husband and wife, or however we want to talk about in this time. The role of the two mates is to create a space for the other one to break out of the cage, to be free, to give up the illusion of protection, which can't happen. And that's key. That's a really subtly, and I write about it in my book, which is coming out hopefully within the next year, Into the Nothing, is part of the role of relationship is for each other to help each other become free. Not because there's really no protection that can happen, and you can't, we can't possess each other in relationship. It just isn't the way it works. We can only be possessed by God. And that's the play that happens in healthy relationship as it unfolds. Well, we like to think we're going to be whole in the relationship. No, we have to be whole within ourselves. Oh, is the woman or man going to protect me? It doesn't work that way. It becomes a trap. Okay, intentionally or unintentionally, conscious or unconscious, doesn't matter. The key in relationship, as the key in Torah, is to help each other out of being a bird in the cage. Big message of Israel from Abraham on. So we're going to kind of hold that message and understand that's a big thing, and that's why you have the cherubim on the ark. And the power of relationship at its highest octave is to help us break out of the cage and give up the illusion that somehow we're going to protect each other or somehow we're going to make whole. It does not work. It's through God, the understanding of the Torah in a deeper way, that we break free. Now, it's very easy to get caught in the Torah at a first level of it. So we have the 613 mitzvah. So let's look at that symbolically. So it's a message to take all the teachings into every cell of our body. So we have the 613, 248 are all the sinews, bones of the body. In other words, taking it at every level. And then 365 is every single day. That's the symbolism. That's really beautiful. And it's all, again, about liberation. You need the foundation of the 613 to then jump off into the unknown of liberation. But we have to have that first, those qualities. So that's kind of the first step of where we need to go. Now there's another step to it. There's more than another step. When the Torah was received, the people said, I will, I'll do, and I will follow it. But they also said, this is too much for us. We'll receive the 10 speakings, really the first 2 speakings, but Moshe, you take the rest. So what happened was that Moshe received the total Torah and the job of teaching it to all of Israel over the next 40 years. So inherent in receiving the Torah and receiving the higher teachings is that the awakened teacher comes along with it. Now, there are several things. I'll say 2 things about the awakened teacher is really important. Well, 3 things. First thing is, there is someone who has to really, really understand it and share the understanding. Okay? That's why we listen to the Parshas. That's why we do what we do. The second thing is a beautiful teaching by the Baal Shem Tov, but also it's a teaching of the Torah. And so the very first teaching is I am Lord your God. But it doesn't say I am. Ani, it says Anoki. What does that mean? Anoki really means my soul. So God is saying, my soul, Anoki, because be clear, that's how it starts, is what is teaching you. I'm teaching you from my soul. And as we study the Torah, the soul of the divine goes in us. That's a deeper teaching, but it's very straightforward. In the same way, the teacher of the higher spiritual, a part of their soul goes in too. And King Solomon and his song Shir HaShirim again talks about the soul, his soul going in to the people. The Baal Shem Tov also says it, that a part of the soul of the teacher, if they're really teaching, goes in to the student, helping them really wake up. So this is really more the secret here of what it means to be a teacher. It's not about an academic thing. It's not about all the smart things we can say about the teaching. The real teaching is the soul. Part of the soul of the teacher goes into you. Feel that for a moment. Okay, because that's key. That's very beautiful part of this teaching very beautiful part of really what Moshe was doing. Now the third is that it says it really clearly. You can't know the Torah and you can't teach the Torah until you've made your first mistake. What's that tell us? It says the teacher isn't perfect. It says to even get started to be a teacher, you have to have made your first mistake and creating in the sense of redemption for that. That's very powerful, because it's really easy to say, well, they're not perfect, I'm not going to listen to them. It's not the way life is. All the teachers in the Torah had their imperfections. Okay, and that's what it says. You really can't teach until you've made your first mistake. Now, that's actually nice to know, because we all make mistakes, and the key is how to redeem ourselves from those mistakes. Now, when we understand what I just said here, we now are getting a bigger picture of what's going on in Naso. Now, what do I mean? Well, what kind of mistakes? It's about a year later, we're in Nisan 1, where people, it's about redemption of the golden calf. That's about as big a mistake as you can get. How big is missing the mark you can get. Okay, so part of what we're looking at now this year later, with the building of the sanctuary, which is what Naso is about, is completing that, is redeeming the mistakes. So that takes us to that kind of a much more humble understanding of the situation. Now, before we get to the redeeming of the mistakes, I'm going to put it that way, there's a certain section in here, but I'm really going to talk about just one of them, and that's the role of the Nazir. So the Nazir is to avoid all impurities, which again, in our humanness, it doesn't really work that way. But the idea is to sincerely admit the mistake, because you can't really go any further if you can't admit that it was missing the mark, and then create the redemption. That's the beautiful piece. And I'm going to mention one more thing, because that's very much what this ceremony is about. It's a story of when, in the 2nd century, okay, when, slip my name for a second, I don't know if I'm going to find it, but Shimon Bar Yochai comes out of the cave, okay, he's been there for 11 years, and he's filled with tremendous light. What is the light? The light is the light of the Torah, the light of immortality, the light of the truth of God. He's filled with this light, and now it's that light that he generates that is creating the teaching. And so that part of it, again, is can we take in the light, and can we share the light as part of the teaching? Now, we're going to step back a little bit, but giving it in context, what we're looking at in Naso is a completion of a very long path. So take this view. Until Abraham, God and humanity were always separate. And there was a connection with Abraham where we have a personal God. But the full descent of God, which more actively started at the giving of the 10 speakings, is about to complete itself with the temple. Okay? And there's an ascent of the people, and there's an ascent of God, but it's not quite yet complete. And this ceremony is the creating of a place for Hashem to dwell on earth. Hashem, the name of God. So it's not just the Mishkan, but it's the sacred space in everyone's heart. That's the real message here. So this ceremony completes that process of the descent and ascent of the people finally taking inside So that's kind of where we're standing. That's the completion of this parsha. Now what's interesting is all the tribes participate in it because it goes for the secular and, quote, religious, but really in ancient days there wasn't really a separation. So everyone, as symbolized by the 12 tribes, is indeed receiving the energy. Now, I'm going to make a little note about Nachmanson. Nachmanson is the first from the tribe of Judah to actually make the offerings. Now, who was Nachmanson? He was the one that refused to be the bird in the cage for Pharaoh. Pharaoh's coming, we have the river, and people don't know what to do, and God says, well, go forward. Nobody wants to go forward. What is this? And Nachmanson turns, because he's now the bird in the cage, and he runs into the river, up to his nose, and finally it parts. It's that kind of thinking and acting that's always there. That's why the word Ivri, boundary crosser, is so key. We are not meant to be birds in the cage of whatever dominating matrix is going on, or in whatever relationship. We are meant to be boundary crossers. We are meant not to be birds in the cage, but to be free from the cage and inspire everybody else to be free too. So there's Nachmanson. Again, he's honored for running into the river, letting it split, and he's then the first in line to make the offering. So it's good to see the bigger picture of the remembrance of what is really going on. So we're about ready to have that happen, but there's one more thing. The whole Mishkan is set. It's been blessed. It's been anointed. And then Aaron comes out and gives the priestly blessing. First time it's ever mentioned, and it's actually the first blessing that's actually given to the people that is really coming out of the Torah. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to have to reorganize this just a touch. Thank you. So I'm going to stand up a little bit here. I want to thank Shanti, who is such a great partner, who just brought me my talus so I can do this blessing. But really, when we begin to understand, I have to get back a little bit. We have to understand this, that the key in relationship, I'll make it back a little bit further. I think that's about right, yeah. Is that there's always helping each other in the spiritual world. I want to honor Shanti before I do this, how much, she's on the other side of the camera, kind of smiling, how much she has been incredible support. I mean, we meditate together twice a day. We do our prayers. We do our pranayama too, which is, and we hold all the holidays, and we create the living of this life of holiness. And it really, really takes that energy. So I want to honor that her for the last 20 years now of holding it and supporting the whole liberation level of teaching that I couldn't get out there without that support. And I don't mean just physical support. I mean emotional, mental, and most important, spiritual support. It really makes a difference to have both partners on the same page, elevating each other and helping each other break out of that bird in the cage paradigm, which the whole matrix always wants to keep us in. So I honor you, Shani. Thank you. Does make a big difference. Okay, so now I'm going to give the priestly blessing, which is exactly this is the first time in the Torah that it's mentioned, and feel that soul energy going into you. Now, traditionally, you're kind of standing and looking, and I'm going to cover my eyes. Actually, that's the way you do it. And there's 3 blessings I'll describe in just a minute. Well, let's, and it means may God keep you safe. May God uplift the divine countenance to you and establish you in grace. And finally, may God Hashem, turn the divine countenance to you and establish you in peace. Here we go. Yevarekeka anoi veishmareka, anoi panavaleu viuneka, Yisa anoi panavaleu v'yasam lahashalom, v'yasam lahashalom, v'yasam lahashalom. And take that blessing, take thy soul energy into you, elevate yourself, be ready. In the power of this blessing, may everyone be blessed that we know the light of God within ourselves. In the power of this blessing, may we no longer be that bird in the cage. In the power of this blessing, may we share the light, love, and joy of Hashem, of God, with the whole world. Amen. Okay, no, I'll just keep it on. And so, the final part of this whole thing is the completion. That's what I want you to get. As we honor the Mishkan, we are creating the space, the sacred space, within all of Israel, within our relationship, within ourselves, to receive God within the beauty and sanctity of our own heart. Shalom, shalom, shalom. And now, just as we get closer, what we always do at the end is go into a little bit of meditation. And I just share that breath and that energy of the divine with you. Amen. And now, you're welcome to go on into meditation.